Um, right. So before we get into the Renfield stuff, obviously last night a story broke that has kind of broken the social media a little bit in that Matthew Perry sadly passed away. It was about, I think it was about 1:30 last night. I was up watching the wrestling and like as an accompaniment to the wrestling, I always go through Twitter as well just to see like other people's thoughts. And a wrestling account that I followed had said that Matthew Perry had sadly passed away. And I mean, like, firstly, the fact that it was a wrestling account is the one that I saw this news on. And then all of a sudden, there was just floods of lots of different accounts talking about this really tragic situation where a 54-year-old man had sadly lost his life. I know we were, Stu, I can't remember, you're a fan of Friends. Did you watch it back?
Yeah.
So I think all three of us, we sort of grew up, was it 94 to 2004? It was a decade of Friends that lived with us. It was bigger than big, wasn't it? It was the culture for a long period of time, Friends was. And yeah, so I just thought it might be worth talking about that before we get into anything else. But Matt, I mean, I know you're a fan of Friends, so talk to me a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think I saw a clip of or an extract from what he said about his life and the troubles that he'd had in his life with addiction and things like that, but coming out the other side of it and trying to help other people. Well, for the vast majority of people, they'll know him, as Chandler Bing from Friends, and what a gift to give like so many people so much like happiness. I think when you think of a legacy of someone that's given so much to society, I guess, in terms of, I mean, if this ever gets listened to by anybody like an alien in 30 years' time by some happenstance, we won't be able to explain how big Friends is/was. Like in home bargains today, there was Friends this, Friends that, Friends everything. I hope, that continues, and it will. It's huge, and he played such a massive part of it. And as a legacy of just a TV show alone, it's incredible. And then there's the story of the man who overcame really horrible things in his own life from a very young age and then wanted to dedicate his life to helping other people. So you've got the man and then you've got the role. It's just really sad. It's like a piece of your living room, your piece of just something that's ingrained in culture has gone. It's a really strange feeling today. And the outpouring from everybody across all, left, right, everybody on Twitter, everybody, it's a very dull, sad feeling. Do you know what I mean?
It is strange to have never met someone but feel like they've left a bit of a void, that they're not there anymore. It's a very odd sensation, I think. Stu, like, how are you feeling about it all? Because it is weird, isn't it?
I mean, I love Friends. I mean, there was that time, not so much in the 90s, but definitely the early 2000s when it was not cool to like Friends. As a young bloke, especially here. I mean, it might be different over there, but definitely here it was not the done thing to admit that you love Friends. Obviously, I didn't care about that anyway, and just talked about it regardless. And it was that whole thing. It was the start of the end of Friends. Was the start of the event thing where we had it as soon as possible after America, like the day after. I remember that finale, and that was sad enough. But now going back and watching it in the future is going to be really odd and awkward and weird, knowing that he's not there anymore. But yeah, I obviously have a life and didn't watch the wrestling last night. So when I woke up and the first thing when I looked at my phone was 7 messages off 7 different people in different group chats, all saying the same thing. I thought, oh dear. And yeah, I was proper gutted. It was weird because, I mean, look, with these things, you normally, oh well, that's very sad. Never mind, brush it off. Who's next? And after the reunion thing, he looked very bad compared to the others. Understandably so, because of what's happened during and since. But like I said, he got through the other side, and you never expected it to happen as freakishly as this. So we obviously don't know yet fully, but it doesn't really matter. And all the girls on there, oh yeah, I didn't like Friends. Well, it's not about you, it doesn't matter.
It's about someone whose character is immortal in TV history, and whatever people think of Friends and however so-called problematic it is now, it was a show from the 90s. Things are different then. It's a time capsule. Get over it.
Mm-hmm.
All 6 of them and the surrounding characters were amazing. It's just sad that one of them's gone, and especially him after he turned himself around.
Yeah, I think that's what hurts the most, really, is he's been through the mill and he came through the other side, and he's actually done some good work to try and help others, and it's ended the way it has. It's just incredibly sad. I did see there was a quote that's been doing the rounds online that you've probably both seen, but I think it bears repeating. I've had a lot of ups and downs in my life. I'm still working through it personally. But the best thing about me is that if an alcoholic or a drug addict comes up to me and says, will you help me? I will always say, yes, I know how to do that. I will do that for you, even if I can't always do it for myself. So I do that whenever I can, in groups or one-on-one. And I created the Perry House in Malibu, a sober living facility for men. I also wrote my play, The End of Longing, which is a personal message to the world, an exaggerated form of me as a drunk. I had something important to say to people like me and people who love people like me. When I die, I know people will talk about friends, and I'm glad of that. Happy I've done some solid work as an actor, as well as giving people multiple chances to make fun of my struggles on the World Wide Web. But when I die, as far as my so-called accomplishments go, it would be nice if Friends were listed far behind the things I did to try and help other people. I know it won't happen, but it would be nice.
Yeah, I hope that, and if there's one thing about like the mawkishness of the internet, it's that will do the rounds and people will learn more. You know, if there's one thing I fucking hate, it's that London Tube thing where like there's always messages that like get superimposed on there, but like this kind of thing would be on that, and hopefully people do learn a bit more about the life that he led outside of Friends and the good stuff that he did and tried to turn his life around, because, you know, we're not all perfect. We all have our demons, and he at least tried to make chicken salad out of chicken shit.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of shows of his that I'd fully recommend to people if all you know of him is Friends. He's done some other work that I think is really worthy of mention. There's a show called Go On that it's only got 1 season. It's got a 7.5 out of 10 on IMDb. It was really well liked, but I don't think he got the viewers, unfortunately, so he only got picked up for the 1 season. And Matthew Perry plays a widower who, it's about going on with life, you know, going through grief and trying to pull yourself through it. And it's such an excellent show, and like not enough people saw it. So that's one I definitely recommend to people. And also Studio 60 on Sunset Strip was another good show. Like, I was a big fan of 30 Rock, so it's kind of got a West Coast vibe version of 30 Rock. So again, that's another thing that's really worth checking out, because he's right, he will always be remembered for Friends, but he definitely did some other work as well. So we'll leave it there, and we'll get on with the normal nonsense that we get on with now.
Nicolas Cage is probably one of our generation's definitive actors.
Hello and welcome to Cage Fighting. It's your main man, Andy Gillard here. Hope everyone is keeping well in the world right now.
Hello everybody, Matt Guy here, fresh off another weekend of putting myself through walls trauma, but we're here to tell the tale on Halloween's Eve.
Oh yeah, it is. It shows how much we really care about Halloween, doesn't it? Hello everyone.
I'm quite pleased. I've seen like a few memes and stuff on Twitter where it's just basically people telling kids to fuck off for Halloween. Like, I feel like my people are starting to show themselves a little bit more now. And I like it. It's good.
Have you seen what well, yesterday, as you listen to this, the NFL sets have all had Halloweens and pumpkins on them and stuff. And you think, this is, and the CG robot's been stirring a pot as well. You think, we don't need this.
It's ridiculous. one of the Cleveland Browns players rocked up today, and every year when they've played the Halloween weekend, he's worn something different. Last year he came as Vecna. This year he came as the creature from Jeepers Creepers. He was a demon before, and he just rocks up in a mask and the full get-up every single year. It's weird, but like they seem to really properly love it over there. Yeah, I don't get it. But
I saw a great video of it was like this English, I think they're comedians, and they'd just like open the drawer and there'd be a pack of Haribo, but there'd be scary Haribo, and they'd go and they'd do a little jump, and then it'll go to just a random item that they'd just put scary on, or a picture of a ghost on, and they'd do a little jump as if it's meant to be. Everything gives them a fright. It just tickled me. I don't know why, just the silly British humour that we have about those silly things.
Oh, did you see the spooky naan bread in Aldi?
Yeah, I did.
no, I didn't that.
It had holes for eyes, didn't it?
Yeah, holes for eyes. It was basically just elongated like an alien head with little holes for eyes and a scary mouth.
Excellent. Incredible. But yes, that's obviously why we're doing Renfield, because it's the most recent Nick Cage scary movie. Well, I say scary, it's not really, but it's tangentially related to horror. So I suppose that's why we're here today. We was talking about this yesterday when me and Stu went to see... No, it was Friday when we went to see Five Nights at Freddy. Mass, did we go together to see this? I can't remember.
We all did. We all went, because there's a photo of us in the lobby.
Wasn't that Unbearable Weight?
Yeah.
Did we not? Oh, no, we didn't. No, I went with Sam to see it because we went on a bit of a stint of going for weeks in a row, and this was after seeing Mario. Yeah, no, I didn't see it with you. Apologies.
We couldn't remember, because I saw it the weekend I was going away, because I had to try and fit this and Mario in, and then I was going away a day or two later. But I couldn't remember if we went to see it together, because I know I went a couple of times. But
no, we saw Elvis and Unbearable Weight, and then I think there was something else. But we definitely went to and Batman.
Yeah, yes, we did. Because me and you went to Batman on the Thursday night, then me and Stu went to Batman on the Friday, and then I went with Casey again on the Sunday. So yeah.
When we went to Batman, you made me listen to, oh God, what's the name of the band? They've got a weird name like Waggy Woo or something shit. The ones who did the theme for Peace.
Wigwam. No, not Wigwam. What is it? Oh God,
this is Wigwam, isn't it?
Right, but yeah, the Do You Want to Taste It? The Peacemaker. Yeah, I did play a lot of Peacemaker at that. Yeah, it is Wigwam. Yeah, I did play a lot of that at that point. I mean, it's great. So yeah.
But that's your question. No, we didn't go see Renfield, but we all did see it at the cinema, didn't we? Yeah, when it came out, it was a rare cinema event that we all agreed on that we wanted to see.
We just couldn't fit us all in together at the same time. Yeah, I could have put that better, I suppose, but never mind.
I mean, my broken mind did think that I'd gone and seen it with Andy when I was about to rewatch it for this. And I mentioned it to the good wife. And I said, "Oh, do you want to watch this Nicolas Cage vampire film?" She went, "Well, I went to see it with you," and I had no memory of it at all. And these other things just bled into one that I just automatically assumed that it was with Andy I went to watch it to. But no, we did Elvis as well around that time. Although you were sitting in front of me.
Yeah, but we'd both booked independently, and I think I'd somehow managed to pick the seat directly in front of you.
Yeah.
Did you give him a little fright in the cinema lobby shit?
He has a little fright on Friday, actually, when they saw me wearing something that you wouldn't expect to wear to a Five Nights at Freddy's film.
Yes, he was wearing his bright neon yellow trainers, jogging bottoms, and his multicolour PlayStation top, walking in with an Asda bag.
Like a sensory mat, a walking sensory mat.
It was, yeah. It was shocking, but yeah, it was a good way. Are you going to see Five Nights at Freddy, by the way, Matthew?
I may struggle for the time, to be honest. And I can't see it having a very long run, to be fair. I'm a weekend.
The apparently it's got like $130 million opening weekend. It's got a massive return, so I think it'll probably be there for a couple of 3 weeks.
Okay, I might find chance then, yeah.
Fair enough. Right, so Renfield, though, do you remember how you felt when you were going to the cinema? All of the... Because you had quite a big advertisement budget from what I can remember. Like, it felt like it was everywhere. So, hopes and fears before you even got to the cinema on your initial showing. What do you think, Matt?
I was really looking forward to it because I'd seen quite a lot of build-up and it just looks like a fun, vampire film. I don't know if we'd already watched Vampire's Kiss at this point. I don't feel like we did.
Possibly not. I think that was later. Yeah,
it was. Yeah, but yeah, I was really looking forward to it, and then watching it again for this, my fear was it wouldn't be as good as I remembered it being at the time, because I didn't know if it was one of those. On first watch, it was quite funny, but on second watch, I wasn't sure if I did enjoy it as much.
The jokes second.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Stu, how about yourself with your broken brain? Did you remember the film, just not the experience?
Yeah, I remember the film perfectly well. I didn't need to watch it again. That did because, well, we'll get to it, but yeah, I remember that first teaser coming out and thinking, well, yeah, I don't need to see anything else. I don't need to read anything else. I know we're going to watch it for this anyway, but it was one of them where we went pretty early on. It was definitely in the first week because I couldn't wait for it because it looked ridiculous. I thought, well, this is exactly what I want from a vampire Dracula experience with Nicolas Cage in. So the build-up to this was bigger than probably anything we'd had before at this point.
It certainly feels like they really went all out for this one, especially compared, or maybe it was off the back of something like Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, because that sort of got cult status quite quickly. Maybe they were hoping that they were going to ride that wave somewhat. I think that's potentially how they were going in with it. So this film is directed by Chris McKay, which is a name you'll probably recognise from the Lego Batman movie. He also did The Tomorrow War, Robot Chicken. He's done quite a few episodes of that. I was looking at his upcoming 3 projects. Lego Batman Movie 2, excellent, can't wait. He's been touted as taking over for the Nightwing role under James Gunn's DCU. And also, he's apparently going to be the director on a Johnny Quest film. So, look, he's very much in the comedy, action-y kind of role, I think. So he hasn't done a great deal, but I think what he has done, he's been pretty solid. He also wrote the Dungeons and Dragons film earlier this year, which I haven't seen, but did get really good reviews.
Yeah, it was great. It was really, really good.
Yeah, I saw it. I enjoyed it as well. It was quite a breath of fresh air, really. It was quite enjoyable for a subject matter that isn't very cool nor sexy to me.
Absolutely.
But again, like Renfield, though, it knew exactly what it was.
Right. So he was very tongue-in-cheek with the jokes,
Yeah.
was it? Okay, super. Right, okay, so IMDb describes this film as Renfield, Dracula's henchman and inmate at the lunatic asylum for decades, longs for life away from the count, his various demands, and all of the bloodshed that comes with them. The film begins with Renfield giving his backstory on his life and relationship with Dracula. Immediately, I love this film. The footage of the old Hammer horror movies, but with Nick Cage and Nick Holt in place. I thought it was a really clever opening. It was immediately familiar with new faces on old characters. Very smart to just immediately put us in that world. I thought that was a cracking opening. Renfield explains that he is Dracula's familiar, which is a close friend or comrade. He would do Dracula's bidding in return for immortality and powers. Renfield shows us how vampire hunters tracked them down, causing Dracula to get burned by the sun, but not before finishing them off. As Dracula had been discovered, it was up to Renfield to find them a new place to live until Dracula was back to full health. And that is how he ended up here in New Orleans. Sat listening to a woman talking about her love life issues, as he is in a self-help group for codependent relationships. Renfield is using this group to find scumbags worthy of being eaten by the Dark Lord. After hearing one sob story from a lady, he decides to pay a visit to her abusive partner, not realising that the same person was also wanted by a local mob boss, Teddy Lobo. The Mexican standoff ends with Renfield punching the head off off the luchador mask-wearing henchman and taking the bodies of the 3 other guys. Renfield takes his now-deceased food to Dracula, who is not happy that he is being fed the dregs of society and not the young, supple, innocent cheerleaders. Across town, whilst he's running away, Teddy Lobo comes across the cop, Rebecca, who manages to take him into the station. Lobo immediately spills a million secrets of murders and drugs and everything, but is instantly let free. So immediately we know that the police are all on the Lobo's payroll. Rebecca is furious, and we find out that her father was a cop who was killed in the line of duty. We understand her motivation. So that's 20 minutes in. We've met all of the players in this film. We've established their motives and relationships. We've had some funny moments. We've had some really quite gruesome, visceral, violent moments. Good opening to a film. Stu, thoughts?
Yeah. Giggled, laughed uncontrollably at times first time and giggled the second. There's things in there like Doug is trash. And that one hasn't got a head. And just stupid things, but how he says it is just spot on. The whole thing with the freak out of the head hitting the car and the driving away and the stopping at the checkpoint and all that stuff. It's way funnier than it's got any need to be, and it's not even punchlines. It's not really even physical comedy. It's just timing, and the timing is perfect in pretty much every frame of every single shot that you see so far. I'm loving it.
Matt, how are you finding it?
Yeah, I was like you with the opening, like the Christopher Lee-esque-ness of like was on, influence was there to be seen as well, I think, and it was just that instantly gets the smiles straight away, and you like tonally, it just tells you everything you need to know about this. Is kind of going to be a not so subtle sometimes, but subtle nods to old horror tropes and stuff, which was fun. And then the way that it kind of, for a film that makes no sense logically, it all makes sense. Like everything that goes on, why the motivations of each character has their, why they do the things that they do, all kind of like, it's deeper than you think if you want it to be. Like the son trying to prove to his mob boss mom that he's, really got what it takes to lead and stuff like that. There were these little like strands of the story that just made me smile. It was set itself up really well for the rest of the film. I think it was a really strong opening.
Yeah, complete in agreement with the pair of you. I think it's, as you said, Stu, it's not gags. It's not, set up punchline. It's not even subtle though with it either, because the jokes are very much in your face, but they're laugh out loud stuff with it. And like, I'm a big fan of Ben Schwartz, and he's perfectly cast as Teddy Lobo in this. He really swings for the fences in all of his performances, none more so than as Teddy Lobo. So yeah, it's a great opening, I thought.
Just like screaming "what the fuck" in the way that he does. It's just funny.
His delivery is just like in every character I've seen, even when you take it down to something like in Sonic, when he does the voice of Sonic, he just brings his character to life. They're all kind of similar, but they're all brilliant with it, so you can forgive him that, I think.
Right.
So after their argument, Renfield goes to a local restaurant in order to get some food and find some of the supple young cheerleaders in order to feed Dracula that night. Whilst he's there, Teddy Lobo arrives with his henchmen. They attack the bar because they're looking for Renfield and also want to get some revenge on Rebecca, who also appears at this very moment. After this fight, Renfield manages to fight off all of the bad guys along with the help of Rebecca and saves her life. He then takes some of these goons down to the lair for Dracula to eat. One thing I did love was in Dracula's lair, I loved how they'd set up all of the colours. So you had the red and the green. So those two colours you had, so it was like you've got blood and you've got nature. You've got the two sort of sides of humanity, I suppose you'd call it. So you've got the nature of someone like Renfield with his past as a, normal human, so to speak, but the blood representing the evil of Dracula and tried to turn him to the dark side. I thought the way that they'd set out Dracula's lair, and you had all of the blood bags and all that stuff that was making what looked like a throne for him, I thought that looked absolutely fantastic. And like you said earlier, like, it's got no right to look as good as that. Like you said about the comedy, but like visually, I thought it was absolutely stunning. That was.
Yeah, whoever put the set design together for that really either had a lot of budget on their hands and needed to spend it, or had like great ideas that they were able to go with, because it just looks so theatrical and so special. There isn't like huge elements apart from that in this film. I feel like the bar in New Orleans is pretty cool, but it just feels like a setting, whereas this really felt special, like it was, but it's as grandiose as Renfield that Dracula thinks that he is. Do you know what I mean? It's a representation of how he sees himself, I guess, and as elaborate, and like with some of the jackets and stuff that he wears, especially later on, it's like showing how fancy he thinks he is.
Yeah, absolutely. Rebecca and Renfield fight back, saving the patrons at the bar, making them become fast friends. Dracula then calls Renfield back to their hideout in the basement of the disused hospital. This is where he tells him that he should not be living in the shadows any longer. He should be front and centre, and that the world should bow down to him. Fearing Dracula's coming out party, Renfield returns to the self-help group. They give him the strength to step out from under Dracula's shadow. He gets his own apartment and gets a makeover. Lobo then manages to track Renfield down, with him having been seen regularly at the disused hospital where Dracula is recuperating. So Lobo takes some of his goons and visits the lair. Only Renfield isn't there, but Dracula is. Dracula takes out all of the henchmen, but when he questions Lobo, Lobo shows him that Renfield hasn't been a very good familiar to him. Enraged, Dracula flies off and waits for Renfield in his apartment. Dracula confronts Renfield, telling Renfield that he has let him down, that he loves Renfield, but clearly Renfield only loves himself, and that Renfield is using him, that Renfield was all too willing to abandon his wife and daughter and act like the victim, when Dracula himself, he's really the victim in all of this. Classic gaslighting. Renfield responds by grabbing a book, not the good book, but the book from the self-help group, where Renfield tells Dracula that he will no longer put up with his abuse, because he's better than that. Dracula sees on the book that he got these crazy ideas from the Live Spring church, turning himself into a bat and flying off immediately. Fearing for the safety of the self-help group, Renfield runs to them to get them to move. But before he can do this, we see a man stood in the doorway. The group leader invites this man inside. Dracula steps forth and proceeds to tear apart the entire group. And the Prince of Darkness tells Renfield that after his betrayal, he will make everyone he ever cared about suffer. At this point, Rebecca and her partner Chris roll up to the self-help group just after Dracula has left, catching Renfield standing above all of the bodies. They go to take him in. Chris double-crosses Rebecca though, and he's called Teddy Lobo's crazy mob, and she arrives with half of the police force which are on her payroll. Back in his lair, Dracula has been keeping Teddy Lobo there, where he makes Lobo his new familiar, setting up the finale. So that was about an hour at that point. The battle lines have very much been drawn. How are you getting on with the film at this point, Matt?
Yeah, I'm still enjoying it. I like, it's not subtle and it's not, there's no risk of a big swerve here, but I like that, the mob have got entwined, I think the line, I can't remember the exact line, but it was something along the lines of it, like evil is our thing or something like that, by Teddy Lobo. So it just makes sense. Everything just makes sense in this bizarre, stupid film. Like, why wouldn't the mob and Dracula, the Prince of Darkness, form a weird alliance? Everything about it just makes logical sense, and it was fun. It was still fun. Some of the fight scenes that we get to that point, they were done well, and yeah, I mean, it was a little less on the comedy at this point. Now I feel about an hour in, it started to swerve more towards action, which I didn't enjoy quite as much, but it was still a good romp, and building itself up to an obvious but still fun crescendo.
It very much plays within the confines of the genre. It doesn't subvert anything, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, is it? You know what you're getting, and as long as you're enjoying it, then so be it. Yeah, Stu, how are you getting on?
Yeah, again, I think that's a bit spot on. It kind of turns from laugh out loud comedy into just silly drama at this point. But again, that's not a bad thing. But you have like it's so obvious, but it works for Renfield to go from his normal stuff and his normal dress to then turn up in a I Am Enough jumper, and it's multicoloured in straight out of the Barbie movie, which was yet to come out. But that whole thing about the self-help stuff, and you go from that, and then you got him delivering one-liners in the bar after, so it's just adrenaline and stuff like that, after ripping people apart and kicking people all over the place. I didn't expect to see like wire work in this film, but it's there as well as everything else. And even silly things like Dracula smashing Lobo's phone is there out of fury. Just silly, but funny at the same time. It's all that Louis said at the start, the mannerisms and everything. It just nails it, every single thing. And I think you said about the mob being in line with Dracula makes sense. Of course it makes sense. It's almost like, why has no one done it before?
Very true. After they manage to escape the mob and the police, we meet up with Renfield and Rebecca, who are hiding out in his apartment. Rebecca's FBI agent sister calls to tell her that the blood sample that she left with her is linked to disappearances for over 60, 70 years span. In other words, it's been Renfield. As they go to leave and take Renfield to the FBI, heavily armoured police arrive. What ensues is a pretty fun, violent, loud, fun and frantic fight scene, including one part where Renfield rips off a guy's arms and beats the other people with them. He tears off another man's face and then stomps through a third guy. Like, it's wild, but it's entirely fun and entirely in keeping with the rest of the film. At the Lobos HQ, Teddy has returned to his mother, and he's brought with him the Dark Lord. A short while later, Renfield and Rebecca are contacted, informed that Lobo has got Rebecca's sister, and that Dracula is now with the Lobos. Renfield and Rebecca tool up and descend on the Lobo HQ. There's more cartoonish fun fighting. Then Dracula manages to talk to Rebecca, tries to get her to side with him. She tries to trick him, but unfortunately the curtains don't open quickly enough to destroy him. Even though there are two of them, they simply cannot beat Dracula. Not until Rebecca sees a stash of cocaine lying around and realises that she can make a safety circle to trap Dracula and win the day. Renfield and Rebecca use Dracula's blood then to resurrect her sister and the self-help group. And everything ends happily ever after. What did you think of the finale, like the third act in this one, Stu? Like, it goes pretty quick, I think, I expect 20 odd minutes, but it goes quite fast and quite frantic.
Yeah, I suppose it's a good thing that they leave you wanting more, but I did want more. It seemed like it was too rushed for me. Both times of watching it, I felt exactly the same. There was the point, why have they got these metal curtains that come down like a secret, like Dr. Evil lair?
It's very convenient, wasn't it, for their needs? Yeah.
Being that high up, they don't need it for bullets, but oh well. By the way, it's a silly film, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I thought it was a nice kind of way to subvert thing where you'd normally have an assault circle, but with a mob using cocaine. I thought that was pretty clever. And obviously the body stuff and the body dismantling that he's not going to come back again from this one. I thought that was again pretty well done. But yeah, it was, when he finished, I just had a massive smile on my face. But it was just slightly, ever so slightly disappointed that there wasn't another 10 minutes. But again, that's probably being greedy, because all the other stuff, and I think Rebecca, she was third or fourth in the pecking order on the listings.
Yeah.
I can never remember her name anyway. It's not Akin Fenway, is it?
Yeah, it's Aquafina.
She's always good in everything I see her in, but it's always the same character. Again, doesn't matter.
Oh, it's always loudmouth New Yorker, isn't it? Every character is.
Yeah.
But she's very divisive. Like, a lot of people either really like her or absolutely hate her. I always think she's like fine enough in whatever she does, but you are right. She's always playing Aquafina and everything.
Yeah, well, that's a bit like the Melissa McCartney, I suppose. Like, a lot of people don't like her specifically either. It's similar kind of thing, but yeah, I thought she was really good in this. But again, I like her and stuff, so I would say that. But yeah, I was happy at the end. I just wanted more.
Matt, did you get enough? Did you want more? What were you thinking in the end?
By the end of it, I didn't, want it to end or anything like that. But as it diverted strictly into just an action flick, kung fu fighting, what have you, towards the end, I was happy for it to finish before it ruined all of the good stuff in the film. I thought it was just enough. 90-minute in and out, and we're done. Though I swear I've got some Mandela effects going on here, because I thought there was some. I could have swore there was a scene where they did the circle, and there's the little drain that's right next to it, and some of it goes down the drain, and then he gets out. Like, I was like, when the hell does this bit happen? And it never happened. And I don't know if I've been in a parallel universe or something, or I've seen a different cut of the film or something. But I was like, well, that circle's perilously close to this drain here. Surely that plays a factor. And then when it didn't, I was like, oh, that's weird. I thought that happened, and I obviously didn't. But I was just, I was glad when it finished, not because it was bad, but because I thought if they added any more to it and it went further down the line of being this now action film, for the reasons in my good, bad and crazy, I was happy for it to be over.
That's it.
In a good way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So the budget on this film was $65 million. The box office return was only $26.7 million, so it didn't even make half its money back in the end, which I thought was quite surprising, especially because I bet you've got probably another 60-odd million on top of that with your advertising revenue. But looking at it, it was released on the 14th of April this year. Within a couple of weeks, either side of that film, we had the Super Mario Brothers movie, Air, How to Blow Up the Pipeline, Evil Dead Rises, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Bowie's Afraid, and the Pope's Exorcist. So there's a lot of films in a lot of different genres that I think are going to possibly pull people away from it. So I think that may explain why it didn't quite get as much as it possibly could and should have done.
What's it on? Like, where could you watch it?
You can watch it on Prime now. It was on Netflix not that long ago, but I think it's on Prime now. And obviously, you can rent it places.
This was me not listening, because I could have swore you said it was on Disney Plus on the drive home yesterday. So I went on Disney Plus, I couldn't find it, and I was like, what the hell is this? Then I just watched it on Me Methods.
Yeah.
But by the point that I was talking to you on the way home yesterday, I kind of totaled up what it was about 9 points and that glass of wine that I ended up drinking as well. So.
You did look at me lustfully. I did wonder why.
Why was drinking wine?
Lisa bought 2 glasses. She doubled up with 45 minutes to go before we were leaving the club. And then after like 10 minutes, I'm not going to drink that second one. Do you want it? And I went, well, I'm not going to turn down wine, am I? And I'm going to turn down a free drink, even though I'd already just doubled up myself with 2 pints of Guinness. So I kind of speed drank 2 pints of Guinness and then to get through to the wine. So,
imagine it's all for yourself with all that stuff in you.
I hate to do this. I'm so sorry, but Stu, have you ever had to do a poo at the football?
You know what? My guest appearance on the Killing that you could listen to now when this goes out, I was confronted by the talk that we talked about piss for the last 3 weeks on here, and yet again, through no fault of my own, this has been brought up. I have done it once only, but that was obviously a last resort. But whatever, if you got to go, you got to go. But that that was a different time because we used to be able to like dodge into that cubicle really quickly because there was no one on the outdoor. But there's a steward on the outdoor now, so you can't you have to behave. But before there was a steward on there, we walked in, and that was when you used to like, just be able to wait against the wall. Isn't it Steve Ball up? And that's when I saw them two blokes coming out like, quite flustered together. So it all goes on. But yeah, only once needed to have that kind of activity on a football ground. But that was probably the pie.
Because the amount that you put in your body pre and post a game, and that's me. How you can get home without having to drop trout with flesh.
As regular as anything, it's fine.
Like British Steel. Anyway, apologies, Andy, for lowering the tone.
That's absolutely fine. It needs to be done occasionally, though, doesn't it? I mean, it's not pleasant, but I think if you've ever taken a shit at a festival, like going for a shit at a football ground is never going to be anywhere near as bad.
Light work.
Yeah, compared to the lung drop at Leeds, it's nothing, is it? Yeah, it's the worst thing ever, that is. Right, so before I give you the scores, what do you think the critical and audience scores on this are out of 10 out of 100, Matt?
I'd like to think that the critical would see the tongue-in-cheek of it, but it's not a perfect film either. So I'm going to go 7.5 for the critical, and I'm going to go 6.5 for the fan, because I think some people would have been dragged into this by their significant other, much like my long-suffering wife, and if they've had a chance to vote, they won't have voted highly.
Stu, what do you think?
I mean, everyone talked about this at the time, didn't they? It was on it, like we said, it was advertised everywhere. It was on buses and everything. I seem to remember it being kind of well received, so I'd probably go high 75, 76, something like that. Audience maybe 80s, like 82, something like that. Because thinking about it, not many people did see it by the sounds of it, but the ones that did, who I spoke, the ones I spoke to, but people who I spoke to and talked to about it all seem to enjoy it, and that's including people who didn't even realise Nicolas Cage was still around.
You're both actually like fairly close. So IMDb was a 6.4. So, it's definitely on the good side of things. The Rotten Tomatoes audience score was a 79%. So, yeah, most people did seem to enjoy it. The critical score was 58%. So you're looking at 2 out of 3 enjoyed it. But that 58% still puts it in the rotten category, which I find quite bizarre. But that's an issue with Rotten Tomatoes anyway, as a, aggregator rather than actually giving you any information, I suppose. So critically, Philip Kemp from Sight and Sound. Renfield is played for laughs, though with no shortage of blood and violence. Jake Wilson from The Age. The main attraction is Nicolas Cage's barnstorming performance as Dracula, played mainly for laughs, yet indicating carefully study of the many predecessors of the role. And Ty Burr from Ty Burr's Watch List, ultimately undone by its self-satisfied snark and bombastic CGI overkill, decreed by the modern movie marketplace. Amazon.com reviewers gave it a solid but unspectacular for Amazon anyway, 4 out of 5 stars, with only 73% of the 2,485 reviews giving it a 4 or a 5-star review. So S. Bryant, this is a longer one, so apologies. He gave a 3-star review. Yesterday, I planted marigolds in the garden. I have not done as much as I should have this last year. It took about an hour of digging out long grass and clear the beds, enough to do the planting. There is no rain due for 10 days and nothing of note in the last month or so. The ground is dry and the flowers even have had chance to be eaten by slugs or wilting in the heat. As I planted the last of the marigolds, Cobweb, the cat, pottered along, sniffed one of the flowers, dug it up, and took a dump on it, and buried the turd in the flower. She looked pleased with herself as I jumped up and down like a cartoon character, accusing her of being a weasel and not a cat. In the evening, we watched Renfield. It is 90 minutes of screen time that proves, I think, my many assertions that there is a difference between film and movie. Renfield is a movie. Nicolas Cage devours the scenery with a range of dental prosthetics, while the rest of the cast have a ridiculous amount of martial arts. This includes punching someone so hard their head comes off, a kick to the sternum powerful enough to make the blood explode from the victim's anus, but rendered for some reason in an X-ray, and lots of scenes taken shot for shot from classic vampire cinema. I think it is probably the last great postmodern work, and it should be understood through that lens. Or possibly Lacanian Marxism. Either that, or it was just a ridiculous piece of blood-splattered pastiche that should not be overthought. That it had a 15 certificate rather than 18 rather confuses me. When I was a kid, it would simply have been banned. That might be my favourite review of anything I've read.
That's quite fun.
Right, good, bad and crazy. Matthew.
So the good was, I think, the tongue-in-cheekness of it all and the whole self-help bit of it really made me smile. I don't know why I found it so fun. The whole affirmations, I am enough, the whole codependent, and the way that they tackled that relationship, I thought was really fun and done really well. It was just, timing, like you said, the dialogue, the way that Holt was kind of just, his character built up strength and confidence as the film went on was really fun to see. I really enjoyed it. The bad would have been when it got to its like action stage and it became a film about its action sequences. Because don't get me wrong, you get that at the start, but it's not crazy. All I wanted from this was to be, and this is going to sound really harsh, I just wanted it to then be took over by Matthew Vaughn, let him direct it, because it wasn't shit, but it was shit in comparison. Like, if you'd have let Matthew Vaughn handle the fight scenes and let everything else be done by this director, it would have been like in the 8.5s to 9s. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't good enough as an action film to be a great film. But, you know, the acting and the story and the character development and stuff was great, but the actual action scenes just weren't as good. They just weren't as good. I wanted it to be Kingsman and it wasn't. And maybe that's a me problem, but that's just how I felt when I was watching it. And the crazy was that weird Mortal Kombat X-ray thing that just came out of the blue. Like, it had no place there. It was fun, don't get me wrong, but it just seemed really out of place. Like, there was no hint of anything remotely like that anywhere else in the film. And I just thought, that's a strange thing to throw in. But yeah, it was weird. And not bad thing, but I just didn't get any. I didn't get that felt like a decision made by somebody else, maybe, like that was shoehorned in.
I wondered if the BBFC or the American version, whose name escapes me, I wonder if they were said that scene's too graphic, and then they've put in that X-ray thing to try and dampen down whatever it was showing. That's the only thing I can think of, because you are right, because it doesn't appear anywhere else in the film. So why use it just in that one bit? It just seemed a bit bizarre. So that's the only reasoning that I can possibly think of. Stu, what's your good, bad and crazy?
I mean, that X-ray thing, it reminded me more of, you ever play with the Sniper Elite?
Yeah, I knew you meant that. Like someone's bollock getting his shot off.
Yeah. You do that to Hitler in the first or second one, where he goes X-ray and he's only obviously got one, which is enjoyable. I mean, my good was Matt's bad. I love the action sequences. I thought it was so ridiculous that it wasn't what I thought this film was going to be. And I think avoiding most trailers and not knowing that it was going to have people jumping into someone and their arms coming off and then beating them with it. I didn't know that was coming. So thinking it was just a silly comedy with a bit of overacting, etc., seeing the action sequences get ever more ridiculous, I enjoyed that, as well as all the rest of the film. The bad, I mentioned earlier, I just felt it was slightly too quick in the final act. For me, I just wanted it a little bit more. But again, that's trying to find something to say because I really did enjoy it really, really much. And the crazy, when this came out and this was on, well, we said it was on buses, it was on everything, post 9 o'clock. It was even advertised on Monday Night Football and things like that. And there was hardly any Nicolas Cage in some of the things, which you kind of understand. It's not really about him. It's Renfield, and I mentioned that some people, like Mandy at work, he's not going to listen to this anyway, so it doesn't matter. Thinking that Nicolas Cage had retired 20 years ago because he hadn't done anything since. Face Off and the obvious things. It just baffled me that people just think like this because he's not in really mainstream for a long time. That he's just gone. Like, surely there's probably other actors that you think this of as well, and you think, well, how can you possibly be like this? Because you clearly, you're not a stupid person. You know films and you see films with his name attached to, and being on this and talking about colour out of space all the time with other people around, he never clocked that it was Nicolas Cage.
I suppose it's a bit like Bruce Willis, for example. Like you would have thought he would have retired years ago because he hadn't really had a hit from 2010s, maybe even before then, So maybe it's just that, out of sight, out of mind, because a lot of Cage's films, especially during the dark times, they weren't on the cinema and they weren't often advertised as Nicolas Cage, so maybe that's why. But you are right, because he has had something of a renaissance over the last 3 or 4 years.
When you look at that one that was advertised on Friday, the one where he's playing a teacher.
Dream Scenario, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's been advertised before things like Five Nights at Freddy's. You think he's well and truly...
He was advertised today before Killers of the Flower Moon as well. So, I mean, like, that's two ends of the cinema-going spectrum, isn't it? Five Nights at Freddy's and Flower Moon is quite incredible. It'd be quite nice if he gets Oscar nominated. I feel like we really need an Oscar nomination for him. Like, we didn't get the Pig one. I think he's in an A24 film. It's the perfect time for him to get an Oscar nomination there. So my good on this film, Ben Schwartz steals this film. He's the absolute best thing in every single scene he's in. He's fantastic. Like I said earlier, I'm a big fan of his anyway. I love him in Parks and Rec. He's one of my all-time favourite characters because he's such a twat. But he really leans into it and he's brilliant with it. So if you've not seen Parks and Rec, just find his stuff in Parks and Rec alone and you'll enjoy that. So he's great in it. Nicolas Cage as well, obviously, he's very good. Awkwafina doesn't annoy me in this, so that's also so Brandon Scott Jones, I've had to double check his name. Brandon Scott Jones, he's the guy who leads the self-help group. I'm a big fan of his. I think I saw him in a show recently called The Other Two, which is about a kid who becomes an internet sensation singer, a bit like a Justin Bieber. And this show is about his brother and his sister, and Brandon Scott Jones plays his brother's mate. And he's so funny in it and great. I think that he's really good in this film, but he's got such a limited runtime. I would have liked a little bit more of him in this movie to really get it. Because you only really see him, like his comedy chops at the end when they've brought him back from the dead. And he's saying about things, seeing things that you can't unsee and knowing things that you can't unknow. That's the only time you see a little bit of the comedy chops from him, which I would like to have had a bit more of that, I think, from him.
His delivery of a line when he was like, he was like, why would you phrase it like that? And then he goes, it was when he said about he'll regain his full power, and he goes, amazing, why would you phrase it like that? And then he was just, it proper had me like laugh out loud. He was like, the delivery was excellent.
He's such a good actor, and he's only really done like, not big parts, because that's unfair to him, but he's never been the main guy in something that I've seen. He's always been the main guy's friend.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get me wrong, but I would have liked a bit more. But I could say that about quite a few of the actors in this film, like Adrian Martinez, who plays Chris, Rebecca's partner. I've seen him in a few things, and he's always really good. But other than maybe five actors in this film, no one gets more than 20 words. So I felt like they could have padded out the rest of the universe a little bit more, I think, with this film, which is sort of my bad. Like, it's a very linear, very small story when it's about world domination and Dracula and stuff. And I think they could have moved out a little bit, given us a little bit more. I also think as well, like, it was a bit of a missed opportunity, because you are right, Matt. I think once the comedy starts to die down and the action comes in, they miss a trick a little bit. Because when you've got something like Deadpool, which came out, 2016 Deadpool, we've seen how you can do good action comedy sustained throughout the film.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they got the balance quite right at the end. There was more action than there was comedy. And it was still good, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it. But we know that it can be done better now. And I feel like they missed the trick, especially because it was an R-rated film in the States. So they had a lot more room to work with, I think, and they didn't really make the most of it. And like crazy, so this week I've spent a lot of time watching clips of Vampire's Kiss because of a podcast that I listened to the other day. And when I put this film on, I noticed that Nicolas Cage's Dracula accent is very similar to Peter Lowe's, which got me wondering. So at the end of Vampire's Kiss, we see Peter laying on the floor, slowly dying. Is Renfield a Jacob's Ladder dream scenario where he's actually dying? Peter Lowe is dying, and he imagines himself as this vampire, and he's actually Dracula.
Mm.
So that's my crazy, that this film is a Jacob's Ladder film.
Incredible. Incredible. Who knew?
Yeah. So did you enjoy this film, Stu?
Yeah, obviously. It's I don't think it'll get in the top 5 just because of the strength of the top 5 alone, but it's definitely in the top 10 of the 60 odd that we've watched over the last few years. Yeah, I loved it, and I recommended it to so many people after watching it as well. Not just because Nicolas Cage is in it, it's just generally a really good, funny film. You don't have to think about anything, you don't have to know any lore, which is odd that you wouldn't anyway, but just go and switch your brain off and enjoy something, and that's exactly what this is. Loved it.
Yeah, I think it was a good, if not spectacular film. Won't trouble the top 5, but it certainly was worth a rewatch, and it was more fun than I expected it to be when I rewatched it. I really thought I think this hasn't aged. I know it sounds ridiculous because came out early this year, but I didn't think that I would have found it as entertaining as I did on a second watch. But I really did. I think it had a lot of fun to it. It just was a little flawed in its action stuff, which is absolutely fine. If it was, if it was much better, I think everybody in the world would have seen it because of how much marketing it had, etc. I think it probably is about right in terms of how many people have seen it and what the views are on it. It's a good but not great movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree with you, Matt. It's good, it's enjoyable, it's fun, it's not amazing. It won't be in my top 5, but it sure as shit won't be in the bottom 5. If we ever get to the end of Nick Cage's catalogue of films, like if you ever have to rank all of them, this will definitely be within the top half. I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
It was schlocky, silly, campy, B-movie, very much the kind of thing that I like. It never pretended that it was going to be Bram Stoker's Dracula. So it was just silly fun, and that was exactly what I had with it, just good, silly fun. I enjoyed it the first time I watched it, I enjoyed it the last time I watched it, and I think that's all you can ask for. So based on... Yeah.
Was it called Mom and Dad? The one where the parents were killing the kids?
Yeah.
The similar kind of vibe to that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I love that film. And that quite it's not a guilty pleasure because I think it is genuinely a great film, but just nowhere near enough people have seen that movie.
I might have to watch Mom and Dad again.
It's like, I think that might be the most fun I've had watching any of the Nick Cage's films, I think. And it's definitely like the most unexpected fun because we were watching a lot of the dark time Nick Cage films at that point, and that falls in the dark period, but no, it's brilliant. So based on this film and this film alone, was Nick Cage good or bad? Matt?
In terms of individual performances, I think he was one of the best. Genuinely do. in every scene he was in, he made me smile and titter, and like he's such over the top campness was just hilarious. He even had and he knew exactly what he was doing. He even had the little Nick Cage whoop,
Yes.
in one part, like it. But it was so perfect. If there's ever a character it could have been, and it was this. He was brilliant throughout the whole thing. Like when he's in the studio apartment, even the delivery of the line "studio apartment" made Sam laugh. When he's like, he doesn't know what it is, and then Renfield goes "studio apartment," and he goes "studio apartment," and it was just every line, every delivery was just brilliant. Like it was hilarious. I know it was like a whole deserves all the plaudits and was the star of out of the two in terms of carried the whole film. But yeah, I thought Cage was brilliant in this. Really, really. I can't think of anybody that apart from. Well, I'm not going to say because it's a case you're recommended, but there's only one actor I think could have pulled off what Nick Cage could have pulled off. There's not many that I think would have done a good job as he did.
It definitely won't be my, you may also know, because mine's very left field.
Oh, okay. Well, in case it's Stu's, we'll let him. I feel like we've ruined Stu's like suggestions on things loads on this podcast.
Yeah.
Crap, so I won't say it.
There. Stu, what do you think?
Yeah. Just echo everything. It's almost like you could tell that he wanted to do this kind of role, well, this role in particular, for a long, long time, and it shows, because even when it's the way he's Renfield, and it's just, I can't think of anyone else who would have done it as good as this at all. And in terms of campness, even when he's got his elongated fingers and he's just moving them around in a kind of flamboyant thespian way, it's just spot on. And even when he's under all that weight of all the makeup at the start, and again, for a film that only cost $30 million to make, the effects were pretty spot on, really, when they needed to be at the start. But even through all that, he was still funny. It doesn't make any sense how that's possible. But it was possible because of Nicolas Cage's performance in this film, which was excellent, and up there with his best.
I think it might be the most Nicolas Cage performance he has ever given, because it gives us a little bit of every kind of Nick Cage that we've seen throughout his career, whether it's the subdued or it's the over-the-top bombast. He gives us a bit of everything. He's, like, as you said, he's not the star of this film, but he is absolutely the star of this film. I kind of want to see him in more of the old Hammer horror films, just redo them, but stick him in as the Dracula role. I think that'd be great fun. So, yeah, it's a clean sweep on that one, I think. Yeah, he was tremendous in this movie. So, finish the sentence then. If you enjoyed Renfield, you may also like. Stu?
The only one I could think of was, if you want Dracula and you want stupid, then you're going to watch Dracula Dead and Loving It again. It's again, criminally underrated and never ever talked about anymore. I don't know why that is, because maybe because the whole spoof thing's died a death, but
yeah,
Leslie Nielsen and Mel Brooks in that are just superb. Well, everyone is, to be fair. I mean, it's been a long time since I watched that film, but even so, Dead and Loving It was great. I mean, it was one of them that seems to be on all the time as well. Like every year, it was like the alternative thing to watch at Halloween. And so I'll watch it every year because it's best.
I don't think I've seen it for a very long time, but I remember really enjoying it way back when. Brilliant. Matt, what about yourself?
Well, it now gives me free reign to say about Matt Berry in What We Do in the Shadows. Could have perhaps have played the Dracula in this and have been just as equally as funny. But yeah. I have mentioned this before on the podcast, but many, 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 many moons ago. But it's another film that has no right to be as good as it is in the same kind of paranormal realm, and it's Warm Bodies. It's a romantic zombie comedy, not really horror film, but it's genuinely brilliant. And it's one of those where if you want to like have if your significant other isn't into these kind of films, they will enjoy this though, because there's enough heart, no pun intended, about it. But it's still a zombie film, and it's still fun, and it still has those kind of not looks at the camera, but those it knows exactly what it is. Those little subtle nods and stuff. It's just brilliant. It's been a long time since I've seen it, so I think I'm going to watch it over the next couple of days, just to really acquaint myself with it.
There's a cracking. That's Nicholas Hoult as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Great movie. So my choice, as I said, it's a little bit left field. So mine is another TV show starring Brandon Scott Jones, where you get to see a bit more of his comedic chops. So if you want to see more of him, and this is also a little bit supernatural as well, the American remake of Ghosts, along with Rose McIver from iZombie. So it's a remake of the British TV series where a 30-something couple inherit an old mansion, and one day the woman gets a head injury and she can start to see the ghosts who all died within this mansion. The British and the American show, they're both very good. But it's a bit like The Office, how you've got the English Office and the American one. It's got the same name and the same premise, but they're two very different shows. This is basically the same as that. It's a really enjoyable one. They've only done 2 seasons so far. The third one is due to come out whenever the strike ends and they can get the actors back in there. But it's a really enjoyable show, and if you like Rose McIver, if you like iZombie, I think you'd enjoy this one. So Ghosts is mine.
That makes sense there, because earlier on in football, they were trailing, but Ghosts, and renaming it Ghosts UK. So, and they said where it all began.
Oh, okay.
So I bet that they're putting that on because obviously season 3 has not been done.
Yeah, that's more than likely. So there's 5 seasons, I think, in the UK one, and the 5th one is the finale. Whether or not they do one this Christmas, I don't know. But they've been really enjoyable. They're really nice and happy, and it's just a nice show to have, amongst all the cynical nonsense that's going to be out there at times. It's a good show. I think they're both available on the iPlayer as well, both the US and the UK one. So if you fancy that, it's worth a watch. So that's another Nick Cage movie in the record books. If you've seen this one or any of the others, get in contact with us. Socials at Cage Fighting Pod. Any emails to cagefightingpod@gmail.com. Please make sure you subscribe on whatever podcatcher you listen to us on. And if you could leave us a review, we would love you forever. And finally, thank you very much for giving us your time this week. We truly do appreciate it. So for this week, Matthew, would you like to say goodbye?
Take it easy, everybody. Have a fantastic and most wonderful Halloween. Even if you're not getting dressed up and having all the silliness, watch a good spooky film. I will be, and probably having a little poo because I'm scared, because I don't like these kind of films generally. Speaking of which, are you going to any of the secret screenings at Cineworld of the horror film they're on?
Probably not, just because I wouldn't want to leave George on his own, because he's going to get people knocking on the door.
Of course.
Otherwise, I probably would have done, but yeah. And if it's going to be an older film, I might just see if it's available via means.
Yes. Goodbye.
Stu, would you like to say goodbye?
I like how he didn't ask me if I was going to watch it, but obviously the answer's no. Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do, actually. I might just not bother doing anything like I normally do. Other things to do either. So, yeah. The good thing is, though, as soon as this week's out the way, we can begin the countdown.
Don't say it. Say it, you motherfucker, you.
No, the poppies are out in force now, so go and get your poppy. You got 2 weeks. 2 weeks of poppy time, and then we can talk about it. And goodbye, everyone.
I think my plan for this Halloween, I've been seeing a lot on TikTok of a film called When Evil Lurks, and it's supposed to be the scariest film of the year. So I think that might be my plan for Halloween, is to see how scary they're talking about. So
if poppies means Christmas, I'm going to have to be the James McLean of this group, because it's still too early to talk about it, I'm afraid.
I didn't say a word. I just said we got 2 weeks of poppies coming up. That's all I said.
No, I agree with you, Matt. Anyway, it's goodbye from me, and remember, be excellent to each other.